Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of my podcast, Limitless with Nadia. Today, we have a very special guest, a former coaching client of mine and a very good friend, Abi, who is a financial coach and helps women invest and create wealth for themselves through investing. So, hi, Abi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Nadia. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, I am so excited to have you on. You guys, Abi has built a net worth in the millions for herself through investing, and she has so much wisdom to share on how to build wealth for yourself. How did you get into building wealth and investing? How did you get started on that?
Yeah, so I actually spent 15 years in the corporate finance world, and I actually enjoyed it a lot. I was helping kind of these billion-dollar companies help them understand how to build a forecast, how to understand different margins, what decisions to make to kind of optimize profit. And I enjoyed it a lot until I had kids. And when I had my first child, I'm here in Canada, so we have a 1-year mat leave policy. I was away for 1 year with my kid kind of attached to my hip. And when I went back to work, it was, I remember I'd leave at 6 a.m. I'd come home at 6 p.m. and I'd have an hour with my kid before I had to put her to bed. And so it just got to a point where even though I loved what I did, I was kind of if I'm going to spend 12 hours away from my home, do I want to do it? Am I doing what I really want to do? Am I spending my time the way that I want to spend my time? And I think that I always knew inside that I could really create something big. And I feel like I wasn't feeling as fulfilled in my corporate 9 to 5. And so that's kind of that was the start of when I started aggressively investing. So I started getting into real estate investing, into stocks, into crypto, into all of these things that essentially helped me make money while I was sleeping. So it wasn't attached to my time. And with that, I got to a point where I was able to comfortably leave my 9 to 5 because I did have cash flow kind of coming through some of these investments. And so I felt like I could leave my 9 to 5 without feeling that pressure of, am I let go of this income and kind of putting my family financial situation at risk? I didn't feel that because we had investments where we had cash flow coming in. So that kind of prompted me to start my business called Network. And essentially what I do is I educate other women on essentially what I did. So different ways in which they can kind of create wealth for themselves. They can create more options for themselves without having, feeling like they have to spend time in a job that they don't enjoy. They can understand how to diversify their income, create multiple income streams, and just kind of build wealth in a way that serves them and helps them kind of reach those financial goals.
Love that. And that's so empowering, right? The idea of making money while you're asleep, you don't have to actively do something to be making the money. The money's just kind of working for you, which is amazing. But tell me more about how you ended up building such an incredible net worth for yourself with investing.
When I first started working, I'm going to say I was 21, and my mom dragged me to the bank. I was still living at home at that time. My mom dragged me to the bank because I got a pretty decent job. I was working as a financial analyst, so I was getting a decent pay and I was still living at home. My mom dragged me to the bank and she's like, half of your income is going away towards, there's a home buyer's plan in Canada. So when you put money into that account, you can withdraw it without getting penalized for taxes. So half of my income was going towards that account without even me looking, actually more than half, without even me seeing it. And it got to a point where because of that, I was actually able to buy my first property when I was fairly young. I was able to buy it when I was 24 years old. And so that was kind of beginning. Now, I did not buy it as an investment. I bought it to live in it, right? Because I was I want to live downtown Toronto. I want to walk to work. I want to live the life that every 20-year-old wants to live. And so I bought it as a way for me to just, as a home to live in. Then when I got married, me and my husband, we decided to buy a bigger house. And he actually owned property as well. I owned my property, and we're like, you know what? Instead of selling both and buying, a house, it's just us two. Why don't we just sell one, buy one and then keep one. And so that
Okay.
kind of started the whole discussions of like keeping investments, because what that actually does is it builds up what's called equity, and you can at any point borrow against that equity to buy other properties as well. And so
Okay.
for me, I was able to borrow against that house and buy other properties, but I was able to do it very strategically, such that I was only buying properties that were providing me enough cash flow every month. So as you
Okay.
can imagine, there's like multiple things, there's multiple ways in which you can invest in real estate. A lot of people go, like their default is, let me just buy this new build expensive condo because it's fancy and it looks nice and all of that stuff. But what actually ends up happening is every month when the mortgage is paid and you get that rent, you're not actually getting a lot after, like cash flow. And so I was buying strategically so that every month I was actually earning cash flow on those properties. So that was like my goal. I'm like, I want to build enough cash flow for me to be able to leave my 9-to-5 job.
Wow, I love that. And it seems like there are certain like obstacles or challenges that people go through when they're starting to invest in real estate because they want to build a higher net worth for themselves. So in your work with women to help them navigate that, what are some of the common things that you notice women thinking or doing that is actually working against them in terms of building their own wealth?
So I think one of the biggest things now in this environment, because, as a lot of people see, real estate is becoming very, very unaffordable. And so one of the things that I encourage is you don't need to just look in your area. And so I think a lot of people think that the best way to build wealth is to buy kind of a home to live in it, like a big home to live in, and then pay their mortgage. They feel like renting their home is almost like giving someone away, giving money away. But in fact, when you do the math, sometimes it actually makes more sense to rent and buy an investment property that might be, in another area that a property manager could manage. And so I think sometimes people feel like because things are unaffordable that they should just wait and not get in and maybe wait till things become more affordable, which I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And so instead of waiting, look for markets that might be less expensive, but there could be other people that could help to manage it. Like you could pay property managers to manage it, and kind of think outside the box and go to other areas instead of just kind of the area that you're in. And another thing is, real estate is great, but there's other ways. Like stock market is such an easy way to get in, right? You can start with like $50 a month and just start kind of building that wealth. I think the biggest thing when it comes to investing is the biggest asset you have is time. And so I think a lot of people in their 20s, they think, well, I have so much time. I'm just going to wait because I'm not even thinking about retirement. But the problem with that is that as you in your 20s, you can start off with a few $100 a month to really build your wealth. As you get into like your, late 30s, 40s, then it starts to become $1,500 a month in order to get to retirement. And so that starts to compromise on your lifestyle. Whereas if you start off young, you can really start building wealth without it compromising on your lifestyle. I think that kind of is the biggest thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I say that all the time too, because I've learned that as I've, learned how to build wealth and accrue interest on things like compound interest. And so, yeah, I think the main thing is if you are young, this is the time to start, putting your money away and investing, so that can eventually lead to a point where you have so much money and it's only because of the compound interest that's actually gotten you there. So I think that is such a great tip for anybody, even if you're older and you're realizing that, okay, maybe I do need to start investing more. Like that's something that's going to help you in the long run. So definitely get on that. All right, so let's dive back into it. Abi, I remember when we were working together with like manifestation coaching, a lot of it was had to do with mindset, which is obviously a really big part of building wealth, right? So what do you feel like are your biggest like mindset tips in terms of like manifesting wealth and making sure that your portfolio is doing really well?
So I do feel like our biggest barrier in terms of, especially for women, is our limiting beliefs, right? It's our mindset. It's what we feel like we can do, what our fears and emotions are kind of telling us that we can do. And I think that a lot of times with building wealth, you're required to take a little bit of risk, right? Like there's no investment that does not come with some level of risk. And so in order to do that, you truly have to, I mean, you have to know like the strategy side of it, which I, help educate women on it. But a big part of it is also believing that it's going to work out and that, you've done all the work that you could, you've done the math, you've understood the risk, all of that. And now it's just kind of taking that dive and believing that it's going to work out. And I see so many women, they find like the perfect property and they're like, they can afford it. They get approved for that amount. Like it's kind of a property that's going to really help them, but they're still reluctant. And it's because it comes back to their fear. Their mind always goes to, worst case scenario. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if that happens? And so I truly think when it comes to manifestation and building wealth, it really does come down to training your mind to believe that you are worthy of it, that you deserve it, that it's going to come to you, that money is not so difficult to come by, that, as long as you know the game, because money to me, it is somewhat of a game, right? If you know how to play the game, then you're going to do fine. And a lot of people, they know how to play the game, but it's a matter of getting over the emotions of what's holding them back from like taking that next step. And so I truly think that it takes a little bit of journaling. It takes some affirmations. It takes these things to kind of create those habits that help you believe that this is something that you can do. And a lot of it is based on what you see around you, right? So for me, I didn't grow up, like I wasn't taught about the stock market. I came from like a middle class family. My dad passed away when I was young. So my mom was a single mom who had to kind of figure it out with us. And so we weren't taught these like wealth building tips early on. And so it sometimes goes against our nature to now be like, let me invest in this third property. Your mind immediately is like, well, should I be doing this? Like, what's the, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? For me, a big one was starting my business. And I think you helped me, I had started my business when I was working with you, but I know that for me, like a big one was, getting over the hump of like showing up consistently on social media. Just how do I price my products? Like, I was working with clients and helping them build hundreds of thousands of dollars into their net worth, and yet I was scared to raise my prices. And so this is something where it's like, why am I afraid of that? Like, why, if I'm providing the value, then why am I afraid to kind of price based on what I'm worth? I think that was something that you really helped me with, is understanding that, your emotions don't control it. And sometimes, you talk a lot about like delusion. Sometimes you have to like really delude yourself into saying, I'm going to make $1 million next month. I'm going to do, and you're just more likely to take action and confident, inspired action if you believe that, as opposed to if you're like, okay, let me just try this out, see how it goes. And, because, yeah, exactly. And I think that when you're hesitant, you're more likely to find problems, right? You will be looking for problems. Like if you get into something, if you, let's say, get into some investments, you've made $100,000 and yet something happens, you're immediately like, oh, I shouldn't have done this. As opposed to look at how far it's come for me, just by taking this one step and making this one decision. So I do think your mindset is your biggest barrier. And if you can hack that, then I think that's like a huge, huge, huge step towards success.
Yeah, I would personally agree with you a ton. That's my whole motto, right? Is your mindset is the beginning of everything. And so I remember when we were working together and it was like you had all of those limiting beliefs and like you said, like the self-confidence around it, you were so hesitant. But when you're able to break through that and realize that I have a role in creating the outcome and the way that I'm thinking and believing has to do with what outcome is going to happen. And I think something that was really interesting is when you said that, you know, growing up, we create a lot of our beliefs, and our relationship with money has to do with what we learned in our adolescence or in our childhood. Yeah. And so I think a really important touching point on this is if you want to build wealth, you have to be comfortable talking about money. You have to be comfortable wanting money for yourself. I think a lot of people struggle with feeling weird about talking about money. I remember this is something we talked about with when we were working together as well, is like being able to show up for yourself and also talk about money and think about money without feeling like a villain for it or feeling greedy or feeling like you are, you know, vain. Because at the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that like money, wealth, it gives you a lot of freedom. Like you can try and make it seem like money is, you know, like the root of all evil, or that, you know, if you want money or that's an objective, that you are a villain for it, like I said. But at the end of the day, if you want to have financial freedom for yourself, or if you want to have a life where you get to do whatever you want, money plays a really big role in that. The comfort of your life has to do with money. And so, and I remember when you said how you showing up on social media, sometimes even as a financial coach, it feels a little weird talking about money because it's just like, okay, how are people going to see this? Are they going to think that like this is vain or this is weird or this is, you know, maybe we should be hush hush about it. There's this whole culture around like not talking about your salary or how much money you make. And I am personally all about money transparency with that. Like you have to be comfortable talking about money. You have to be comfortable talking about wealth. Like you said, you know, being able to see that you are going to be successful with that before you even jump into it. You have to start embodying the energy of a wealthy person before you actually get into or accumulate the wealth itself. Because you visualizing yourself as a wealthy person without feeling guilty for it, that is going to it's going to remove a lot of the blockages that actually prevent you from being able to manifest wealth, right? Because in the back of your mind, if wealth is something to be ashamed about, if wanting money makes you greedy, you are not going to be inclined to pursue wealth, because in your mind, the fundamental belief is that, you know, I don't need money, or that money is inherently a bad thing to talk about or think about. So money is a good thing. Money is your friend. And so I think, like we said, that was something else that we talked about, is like, how can we get comfortable around this conversation of money? How can we not feel afraid to claim that we want to be wealthy and we want to have a net worth in the millions, right? So I think that was also a really big part of it. And like I said, and also like you said, right, you grew up with a single mom who, you know, had to figure it out, had to learn the ropes. And so when you have a struggle mindset around money, sometimes that can be really difficult to overcome unless you implement things like journaling and self-reflection, saying those affirmations and reprogramming your mind so that you are not thinking in default mode with behaviors and actions and beliefs that don't actually align with what you want.
Yeah. And I also think that, like, I mean, for me, even just showing up on social media, like I know, and I'm sure it's similar for you, but in our culture, it's like you don't talk about anything. Like, do not show your success. Do not talk about it before you do it. Like, just keep hush hush, because, you know, someone else might look at that and they might want to try to ruin it, or something might happen. And so I had to like overcome that as well, because I'm like very much an introvert, right? I'm not someone that likes to go on and do all of these, you know, reels and TikToks and like talk about, but I know that it's going to help people. I know that it's going to drive women to ask more questions and get them to become more empowered on money and building wealth. And I truly think that a lot of times with women, we've also grown up where it's like, you know, you have to be perfect and you shouldn't take that, you know, you shouldn't take risk. And so I feel like there's just so many things that women have to overcome as well. And so for me, it's like, this is kind of my calling, where I have to feel comfortable doing it so that other people feel comfortable talking about it as well. And then we can all kind of, you know, grow our wealth together. It's not like this individual pursuit and we're all hush hush about how we're getting there.
Yes.
And so I think that's like a big one too. And everyone has their own trauma and, you know, beliefs that they grew up with. And that's like, this is why I think everyone should have like some sort of mindset coaching. around kind of just getting over their limiting beliefs. And as you know, I have a membership, and Nadia comes on all the time to talk to my members and they're so interested in the mindset stuff because they know that you need it in order to kind of, build wealth and make money and be successful. So
tell us more about the membership program for anyone who might be interested in enrolling for that.
Yeah, so I have a membership. It is basically we do like one masterclass a month, and then I do market updates. I do live coaching once a month as well. There's a community where you can ask questions, share wins. I share like templates and all of these things just to kind of help women get the education portion of building wealth. It's a really low ticket item. Yeah. And so it's for me, it's more about creating a community where, we're all kind of in it together. It's a more focused community compared to like social. And it's fun just seeing even the women like get to know each other and, meeting some of them like have met each other in real life. And so it was something that I was really passionate about to introduce, because my one-on-one coaching and my group program are a lot more higher ticket. And so for me, one of my values is I don't want to leave anyone behind, right? If someone can't afford, let's say, my higher ticket, I still want them to be able to have access to the education. And so my membership is for, it's a lower ticket item, but it's something that can foster that community and still provide that education.
I love that. And I will tell you guys, one thing I admire so much about what Abi does and her personal mission is that it's all about making women feel comfortable to ask the questions. And I remember when I first actually saw your social media profile, what I loved was that you made it very clear that this is a space for women who are usually intimidated by conversations around money and investing, which is usually a male-dominated like industry or, field. It's always men that are talking about, the stock market and crypto and all of that stuff. And so sometimes as a woman, it can feel really intimidating to ask those questions and to want to get educated and to learn more about that stuff. But at the end of the day, your power lies in your ability to ask questions about things that you're curious about. If there's something that you want to do, like build wealth for yourself, and you know that you have to learn about investing to get there, Abi is like the perfect person to help you with that, because you get to ask questions without feeling silly or without feeling like, oh, I should know this. Like, why am I asking this? Feel so dumb? Like, we need to be able to have those open conversations, and people like you are really good about educating the women who are really interested in that, because again, society is evolving and our culture is evolving, but it's been a really big thing for a long time for women to be financially dependent on a man in order to have that kind of freedom. And so as a woman, if you can learn how to do that for yourself and make it not hard or not like it's a huge barrier or something that takes a lot out of you, there's so many awesome things that you can accomplish for yourself and do for yourself without having to rely on somebody else to do that for you, specifically when it comes to like men, right? So I love what you stand for. I love your mission, and I am so excited. If anybody is interested in enrolling for that program, I also give masterclasses, like she said. I think it's like every other month. So definitely inquire about that if you are interested. I think we'll probably link it below if you want to get in touch with Abi. All right, jumping back in, Abi, I have a question for you. What do you feel like has been the biggest personal benefit in terms of being able to manifest all this wealth for yourself?
I think the biggest benefit for me is truly having choices. I talk to women all the time, and I feel like I attract a lot of like super ambitious type A women as clients. And when I ask them like, how much money do you want to build, or how much wealth do you want? They're always like, I have clients who are like, I want billions, I want like hundreds of millions. And I'm like, but why? And we kind of get really focused on what is it like, if you were to wake up every day, what would your ideal day look like? And kind of just map that out and understand, okay, how much money would it take to get there? Manifesting for me, being able to get this level of comfort in terms of investments and all of that, for me meant waking up and going to the gym sometimes at 10 a.m. I never used to be able to do that. And that brings me so much joy, right? Being able to go pick up my kids without rushing out of work and feeling guilty that I'm leaving before all of my coworkers. Being able to take vacation and work if while I'm on vacation, just take my laptop with me and travel and like create a life that's flexible around my job.
Yes.
And so for me, it's all about that stuff. It's not the big things, right? It's not the like fancy cars and big houses and all of that
bags
stuff. The designer bags. I would trade all of my designer bags for this life forever. And so for me, it's all about like, how do you want to spend your time? How do you want to wake up and feel at peace? And I think that for me, truly, I'm still working on it. Like some days I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I have so much on my plate. And so now like my goal for this year is to build a business around my life and not the other way around. I'm not looking to build this like massive business. For me, it's about building a business that where I wake up and feel fulfilled. I feel like my cup is full and I'm still giving back and I'm still creating impact. But I'm still able to prioritize my family and prioritize myself and all of that stuff. So for me, that's kind of what wealth is about. And when I talk to other women and help them understand like what are you working towards, I help them get more clarity on that. And sometimes they go from like, I need all this money to, okay, maybe I only need this much a month to get to that stage. And then maybe I'll focus on something else. And so I think getting crystal clear on that is important. And for me, it was truly like just understanding how I wanted to spend my time.
As a business owner, that's like you said, that's a huge thing of being able to control how you're spending your 24 hours every day, because you get so much freedom when you don't have to worry about like taking time off or, worrying about, oh my God, okay, I have to be at work at this time and do it, have that whole time schedule carved out for you. There is so much joy and peace in that. I will also say, I think something that personally motivates me to like make money and become financially independent, financially stable is also being able to give back, like take care of the people that I love. That's so important. And I think having the ability to do that, or if you want to take your family on a vacation, like you said, if you want to be able to just book a random vacation to Florida or wherever, just to spend time with your family, I think that is priceless, really, like the ability to do that. And so that's personally for me something that I have really enjoyed about being able to build my own wealth. So we have a Limitless challenge of the week. Every week at the end of every episode, we have a challenge that you guys can apply in your everyday life to start seeing results from what you're learning in this content. So Abby, what should our Limitless challenge of the week be for today's episode?
The first things I tell people to understand is where they are now and where they want to go. And so to understand where you are now, you really should take stock of like, what's your income, what's your expenses, and understand kind of your current numbers, and then kind of map out where do you want to go. So let's say you take stock of your expenses and you're saying you spend $5,000 every month. Well, is $5,000 enough, or is your goal to get to, is if you were to make $5,000 through the stock market or through investments, would that be okay? Or would you need $10,000 a month to live comfortably? And so kind of just map out, what are your money goals? Where are you now compared to where you want to go? And that's kind of the first step to understanding then, where should you invest and should you put your money in the stock market? Would real estate get you there quicker? And all of these other things to bridge the gap. But in order to bridge that gap, you first need to understand kind of where you are now and where you want to go.
Yes. Okay. I love that. And I'm also a big, like with my coaching as well, as the first step is asking yourself, where do you want to end up? Like, what's your your long-term vision? Yeah. A great way to do that, like you said, is to do a breakdown, take inventory. Where are you currently at with your numbers? And where would you like to be ideally? So like, what's your target income every month? Or like you said, with how much do you want to be making off your investments? And this part requires a little bit of delusion, right? If you can't really see the way there yet, all the way, that's okay. But you have to start by asking for what you want, or at least setting that goal, so that you can start building momentum towards that. So I think, that's a great Limitless challenge of the week. I will also say, for every financial goal that you set for yourself, or everything that you say that you want for yourself in terms of building wealth, what are the things that you need to let go of in terms of your limiting beliefs, your relationship with money? What are the things that you need to release in order to get there? And what are the things that you need to start doing more of in order to get there? So a lot of the times people get really overwhelmed of, okay, I know that I want to invest, but I don't even know how I would do that. Okay, so what do you need to do more of? Learn about the stock market, learn how to invest, learn how to get into real estate. So start asking yourself those questions so that you can start building wealth for yourself and reach your financial goals. Abi, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. You have given us so much insight, so much value. I am so grateful that you have joined me today. And Abi, where can the audience find you if anybody wants to connect with you?
So I'm most active on Instagram, probably. It's at Abi Shamji, or you could go to my website, www.network.co. So it's network spelled H-E-R, so Netwherk.
And we will also link that below if anybody wants to check that out. And also check out Abi's program. What is the name of the group, or the it's a membership, right?
Yes, the membership is called Wealth Academy, Wealth Society. And I also have a a group program called Investor Academy, and that's for anyone that is kind of ready to start investing. It's a lot more support and more higher level education.
All right, you guys heard it here. You guys can check her out if you are interested in that, and we will see you in next week's episode.